Welcome friends. In Indian economy, up till now we have completed 3 units, and now we are moving on to unit number 4, where we will be discussing poverty and unemployment. You would recognize that these are the two main issues, main challenges in front of the Indian economy. And you know already that India is among the countries with the largest number of population, largest number of people below poverty line. Likewise, since India is a considerable proportion of its population in the young age group, these people in the young age group, they also look for employment, and so providing employment is another challenge in front of the government, for the government. So unemployment becomes another main challenge for the Indian economy, and that is why Unit 4 is going to take up these two issues in detail. So let us start our discussion with poverty. What do we mean by poverty? Basically, poverty is lack of enough material possessions or income for a person's need. Fine. So if an individual is not able to meet his personal needs, what are the personal needs? Food, clothing and shelter. So if the individual is not able to meet his personal needs, why? Because he does not have sufficient material possessions, then we can call him poor. We can say that this particular individual is poor. And poverty is this phenomena wherein a number of people do not have sufficient resources to arrange food for themselves, clothing for themselves, shelter for themselves. So this phenomena is known as poverty. Right? Now let us try to understand the different types of poverty which are there. Basically, you would be able to understand that poverty is basically of two types. One is known as absolute poverty, and the other one is relative poverty. We'll come to relative poverty a little later. Now, what is absolute poverty? Now, as I said, just expanding the definition from the definition that we went through in the last slide. Absolute poverty basically is absolute lack of resources, so that the individual is not able to meet his personal needs. He is not able to arrange food for himself, shelter, clothing. Not only this, he is not able to arrange potable water. Now, what do we mean by potable? Potable is fit for drinking. So he is not able to have access to water which is fit for drinking. And sanitation facilities. For example, if he does not have any access to functional toilets, right? If an individual does not have access to health facilities, in case he is suffering from some health issue, he does not have access to good quality and affordable advice, medical advice, or he does not have access to drugs, medicines, he does not have access to education. He does not have access to education which provides him functional literacy. He does not have access to education which improves his skills. He does not have access to information. Now, in all these cases, we may say that the phenomena of absolute poverty is at work, right? Now, please understand there is a difference in absolute poverty and threshold and relative poverty. One difference is that for absolute poverty, the threshold is same across the countries. It does not depend on which country one lives in, which particular region one lives in, right? This is not the case in relative poverty. So the threshold is same and independent of one's location in society as far as absolute poverty is concerned. Now please understand what do we mean by threshold. Threshold is a particular limit beyond which if somebody is earning beyond this particular limit, then he would be considered above poverty line, or he would not be considered poor. But if he is If somebody is earning less than that particular limit, then he would be considered poor. So that is what we mean by threshold, right? Now this threshold, this limit is the same. It does not depend on one's location, which particular country one lives in, which particular society one lives in. It is same across different countries and different societies, right? Let me give an example of the World Bank's absolute poverty line. So the World Bank's poverty line is around $1.9. So it is $1.9. Now $1.9 basically is somewhere around how much? $1 is somewhere around 75 rupees. So $1.9 would be somewhere around 143 rupees approximately. So according to World Bank, if somebody is not earning even this much per day, if he does not have even this much money every single day, then that particular individual is below poverty line. Now please understand, this international poverty line is same across different countries. Fine. Earlier, please understand, around 10, 15, 20 years ago, this poverty line was just $1. Now since there has been an increase in price, there has been an increase in the rate of inflation, naturally the line has shifted, the threshold has shifted to $1.9. So there has been a shift from $1 to $1.9 because of this reason. Fine. Now this threshold is same across different countries. It is not different for different countries. Fine. So this is what I meant by saying when I said that threshold should be the same and independent of one's country, one's location, one's society, right? Now let us move over to relative poverty. And before moving over to relative poverty, let me make you understand the difference between absolute poverty and relative poverty. Fine. I said according to World Bank international poverty line, which is around $1.9, 143 rupees on an approximation. So 143 rupees per day. So if somebody is earning less than 143 rupees per day, then the individual would be considered to be below poverty line and would considered to be mired with absolute poverty, suffering from absolute poverty. If somebody is earning beyond that, if somebody is earning more than that, let's say somebody is earning rupees 1000 per day, then he would not be considered poor if you go by this particular line. But please understand, let us take two individuals who are earning much above $1.9 per day. Let us say one of them is earning rupees 1000, guys like me, per day, and somebody else like Mr. Mukesh Ambani, he might be earning rupees 1 crore every day, or let's say at least rupees 1 lakh every day. Now if I compare myself with Mr. Mukesh Ambani, I would always feel that I am not as rich as he is. I would find myself relatively poor. Now this is relative poverty. Though in absolute terms, if I talk about absolute poverty, neither I am below poverty line nor is Mr. Mukesh Ambani. But if I talk about relative poverty, I would find myself to be relatively poorer than Mr. Ambani. And this is what basically means by relative poverty and how it is different from absolute poverty. Fine. So relative poverty is inability to enjoy a minimum level of living standards compared to others in the same time and place. Right? So I'm comparing myself with somebody else, and if I feel that I'm not able to have the kind of living standards that he is because I do not have sufficient money, I would find myself to be suffering from relative poverty, right? Now the threshold would be different from one country to the other, one society to the other. Fine. So what is the difference between absolute poverty and relative poverty? This is another difference. In case of absolute poverty, threshold is same. In case of relative poverty, threshold is different from one country to the other. And what is the threshold? Basically it is set at the median income in most countries. Now what do we mean by the median? I hope you remember your discussion in statistics for business decisions. Therein you have read about median. Median is the middle value. Let me give an example. 13579. What is the median? If you arrange them in a particular sequence, ascending or a descending sequence, then the value which comes in the middle, the third value out of the 5 values which are here, 13579, the third value would be the middle value, and the third value is 135795. Right? For this you have to arrange the values in an ascending or a descending order. So median is basically the middle value, and the threshold is basically kept at the median value in most countries, which means if there are 100 people in a country, I'm just giving you a hypothetical example, the threshold value, how do you determine the threshold value? We'll find out how much each of them earns and then arrange this in an ascending order, and the 50th value would be the median value, right? Those below that would be considered to be poor in a relative sense, or would be considered to be suffering from relative poverty. Those above that would not be considered to be suffering from relative poverty. So this is the difference basically. So 50% of the people who are below median income threshold is set at median income, which means median is the middle value, means 50% of the people in these countries would be considered to be relatively poor. Fine, because they would fall below the median. Median is the middle value, 50%. So those who earn, when we arrange all their earnings in an ascending order, those who earn less than the other half, so that particular half of the population which is earning less than the other half of the population would be considered to be relatively poor. Now this is the difference between absolute and relative poverty. Now let me clarify one more doubt. Now for example, if you talk about India, you would find that the current poverty line is somewhere around 35 rupees approximately per day per individual. Now if you take example of your family, you might be 5 members. You might be, in your family you might be having your father, your mother. It may so happen that you have one more sibling, so which means that you have 4 members, and then you have a grandfather, supposing. So you have 5 members, right? And now how do I determine whether your family is below poverty line or not? What would I do? First thing is, I'll find out this figure is for one individual per day, right? So how many rupees should a family of 5 members have? 35 into 5, and then I'll multiply it with 30 days. If your family income, supposing your father is the only working individual in the family, is more than this amount, then you are not below poverty line, you are above poverty line. Is that fine? So basically in India, a family size that we generally make use of, family is considered to be of to include 5 members, right? So this way we can calculate whether that particular family is below poverty line or not. So though your mother may not be working, you might not be working, your grandfather might not be working, but still we can find out whether they are below poverty line or not. How do I do that? For them, for every single individual, the minimum requirement is rupees 35. So a family of 5, since you have a family of 5, the requirement would be 5 into 35. So this should be the money that should come to your family every single day. And if I multiply it with 30 days for the whole month, then if your monthly income is more than this, then your family is not below poverty line. So this is how we can determine whether a non-working individual, somebody who is not engaged in any job, is below poverty line or not. Fine? And this is how we determine whether somebody is below poverty line or not. Right? I hope the discussion on absolute poverty and relative poverty is clear to you. Thank you very much for your time.